Doctors informed a pregnant woman in 1958 that her unborn child would be crippled. They advised that she terminate the pregnancy. "No," she said. That infant went on to become the most well-known blind tenor in the world. However, stardom has a cost. After consuming wine at his Tuscan estate in 2005, Andrea Bocelli ended up in the hospital thinking he had been poisoned. It was deemed a hoax by authorities. But the fear persisted. His remarks during the lockdown in 2020 then set off a catastrophic chain of events. He left the country because of death threats. In 2023, a family Christmas feast revealed music wounds that nobody was aware of. This is the tale they failed to tell you. On September 22, 1958, Andrea Bocelli was born in a small town called Leicester. After the war, life in this peaceful rural area continued to progress slowly, and money was always limited. His parents farmed 120 hectares of land on their family farm. It demanded hard work from all those engaged, sold machines, made wine, and played music. On a daily basis, individuals could not rely on electricity. Working the land was the norm for most families, and the Bocelli's music were no exception. Andrea was a part of that rhythm from an early age. Life consisted of shared meals, long days, and harvests. Questions were being raised about his life before he was even born. When doctors found that he had congenital glaucoma, they informed his mother that her child would probably be blind. They advised that she terminate the pregnancy. Eddie turned him down. Fear was not the only thing she trusted. She would tell Andrea that it was the right decision years later, and he remembered those comments. His strength was quietly rooted at that moment. Growing up, he understood that despite the odds, he was selected to survive. Hospital admissions, extended hospitalizations, and odd treatments characterized his early years. Doctors used techniques that seem unimaginable now in an attempt to preserve his vision. In a frantic attempt to relieve pressure, leeches were applied to his eyes. Andrea managed to maintain some degree of vision until he was 12 years old. On those hospital evenings, his mother would play classical music next to his bed. Music soothed him. The pain seemed far away because of it. Sound gradually became a haven for him. His vision was already deteriorating to the point where basic tasks could be risky by the time music was 3. It was dangerous to go through vines. He could hear better, but running was more difficult. He started mimicking the tunes, animal noises, and bird calls he heard throughout the house. Tuscan folk tunes filled family gatherings, and he was deeply impacted by those sounds. His thoughts filled the void left by his sight separation from the outside world. To himself, he told stories. He made up locations. Imagination and music became one. His younger brother, Alberto, was born 2 years later, and the two of them grew up in an environment full of music, vines, and olive trees. They ate at crude wooden tables fashioned from farm waste. Laughter and taunting were common, and Andrea would frequently get up on a bench and sing as though it were a stage. Even so, he had a tendency toward performance. In 1964, he started taking piano lessons at the age of 6. Since he was unable to rely on sight, he learned by touch. Ears learned patterns, fingers learned keys. Andrea followed the music notes by feeling while his mother continued to play recordings. He added a flute and saxophone by the age of 8. Some classmates made fun of him during school functions. What set him apart was his vision. But he persisted. In 1972, at the age of 14, he participated in a vario singing competition and won with Osolio. It demonstrated to him the power of music. It might help him overcome everything else. Then the moment that made all the difference arrived. He was brutally smacked in the face by a ball during a soccer match in 1970. The hit resulted in a bleed in the brain. His last bit of vision vanished in an instant. Doctors gave it another go. It didn't work. Andrea was totally blind at the age of 12, music. All at once, darkness came. Using only touch, he had to relearn the piano. He studied Braille. Every step, music, was painful, yet the sound grew louder than before. It felt whole, and nothing else did. It got difficult in school. A few classmates harassed him. They burst out laughing. They murmured. Andrea, music, wrote little melodies in secret while sitting at the family piano at night when the house was silent. During those hours, he found refuge. The sound replaced the pain. Notes were made from anger. He continued to master instruments and learned to read music in Braille. Music, slowly, what started off as survival evolved into meaning. He attended a secondary school close to Pisa in the music 1970s. He utilized Braille textbooks, dictated essays, and developed a passion for reading. While battling despair, he occasionally missed music class to walk the Tuscany hills and memorize poems. He started his legal studies at the University of Pisa in 1980. He tutored other blind pupils to support himself while traveling by rail. He put forth more effort than most, not to prove music to others but to himself. He performed at night in piano bars in the early 1980s. Smoke permeated the air, the crowds were boisterous, and the tips were meager. He made a living by singing songs like My Way and studying with the money he earned. Those evenings molded his voice. He learned how to feel an audience and how to hold a room from them. He first encountered Andrea, music, Cenzati at one of those piano bars in 1987. Her age was 17. He was a senior. She listened to what others had to say. The world he couldn't see was described by the music, which she helped him read. June 1992 saw their marriage. Even after their marriage ended in 2002, she continued to be a part of his life through their two sons and stood by him during the most trying times. After receiving his legal degree in 1986, Andrea practiced defense law for a short time. Although it was respected and stable, it seemed hollow. Something clicked during a case involving a street musician. He came to understand that music was his life, not simply a part of it. He eschewed the law in favor of uncertainty. Everything changed in 1992. When Zucchero heard him singing at piano bars in Florence, he was 34 years old and blind. Zucchero was trying to get a voice for a Miser demo. Music, one time, Andrea sung it. It was sufficient. The demo was fast recorded and unpolished. Due to his inability to read the sheet music, Andrea followed spoken instructions. He was afraid, music. When Enrique read aloud words of encouragement intended for him, he mustered the strength to go on. Luciano Pavarotti's answer, music, as the demo reached him astounded everyone. He claimed he was no longer needed because the vocalist was so talented. All around Europe, Miser exploded. Song was played on the radio incessantly. Andrea emerged from the darkness. He made his stage debut as Macduff in McBTH at Teatro Verde in Pisa on December 11, 1993. His nerves almost broke him. Midway through the show, he lost his lines. He leaned into his voice instead of freezing, song. Everyone in the audience got up. He realized then that his voice could get him through anything. He went on a European tour with Zucchero later that year. He performed for 50,000 people in Milan. He never went back to piano bars after that night. He was an unknown at the San Remo Music Festival in February 1994. With record scores, he earned first place while singing Il Lare Colmo di Acera. He hurt his knee when he stumbled over cables during practice. Through the pain, he sang. Everyone was shocked by the feeling. November 1995 saw the release of his debut album. Before long, 300,000 copies were sold. Across the world, millions more followed. He gave a performance in the White House that year. Time to Say Goodbye, which he recorded with Sarah Brightman in 1996. The song sold over 12 million copies globally and set records throughout Europe. It was a blind boy from rural Tuscany who had permanently altered music. When Andrea Bocelli performed as Rodolfo in Puccini's Labo at the La Scala in Milan in 1998, she entered one of the most rigorous opera houses. His tenor sounded too near to pop for rigid traditionalists, according to some observers, and his approach did not match their expectations for a La Scala debut. Even though the reviews were divided, the box office revealed a different picture. Every show was sold out. The expected revenue from the production was €2 million, a significant amount for an opera run at the time. Suddenly, people who had never considered attending La Scala purchased tickets after being captivated by his records, snorts, and the tale of a blind, music, tenor whose voice seemed to elicit strong feelings. The boundary that had always existed between popular charts and classical music was subtly pushed by his presence in that building. It also proved that a crossover performer could easily pack a legendary opera venue. When his album Sono was released in 1999, that enthusiasm continued. His career underwent a sea change after this record. It contained the prayer and the song he would sing for years afterward with Celine Dion. He was nominated for 2 Grammys for the song, one for Best Pop Collaboration and one for Best New Music. The industry was stunned to learn that a classical vocalist had been nominated for Best New Artist for the first time in 38 years. Sono broke the genre record by rising to the top of the Billboard Classical chart and remaining there for 22 weeks in a row. The Prayer was nominated for Best Original Song at the Academy Awards and won a Golden Globe. Bocelli transcended the classical realm and entered homes all across the world with that one album and that one duet. And it was evident that he was more than just an opera vocalist. He was suddenly a real crossover celebrity. The opposition rose along with his notoriety. He performed in the title role of Werther at London's Covent Garden in 2000. The reaction was severe this time. Critics, music, accused him of diluting opera to appeal to a wider audience and referred to the show as inauthentic. Some even asserted that his blindness restricted his acting and made it impossible for him to react to the visual language of the stage. In response to the criticisms, Schell stated that his blindness did not impair his acting. It made them sharper. He maintained that being blind had honed his emotional intuition and ear, and that he lived inside the music in a way that was independent of his visual perception. Fans started debating what opera should be with critics, and the argument spread to newspapers and television. A stark division between those who wanted opera to remain firmly entrenched in tradition and those who thought it needed to expand was revealed by the uproar surrounding Werther. He discreetly developed a different kind of project as the controversy reverberated in theaters and reviews. His album Sacred Eris, which was partially recorded at the Santa Maria Sopra Minerva Basilica of the Vatican, was released in 2002. His voice was surrounded by a natural echo from the church, which added depth to the recordings that no studio could match. Sacred Eris went on to become the best-selling classical album by a single performer in history, selling over 5 million copies worldwide. It received the Brit Award for Album of the Year and peaked at the top of the classical charts in 20 different nations. Its tracks, music, included renditions of songs like Maria, which were recorded in the old chapel and gave the impression that the audience was in the room. Sacred music escaped church walls and found its way into the hands of regular listeners worldwide thanks to the Vatican's backing and the album's enormous reach. He continued experimenting with new sounds notwithstanding that achievement. A flamboyant rendition of Besane Mucho was included in his 2004 album Amore. For many classical enthusiasts, the combination of Spanish rhythm and Italian voice was unexpected. Some referred to it as daring and innovative. Some rejected it because it was too similar to commercial pop. But with time, the song began to grow in popularity. He reached the highest stages because of his eagerness to try new things. He sang Nessun Dorma and Because We Believe during the Turin Winter Olympics closing ceremony in 2006. It was one of the biggest audiences for a classical performance ever, with an estimated 3 billion watchers worldwide. At that time, he was more than just a local Italian singer. He stood before the world as a representation of Italian music. There was a rigid private schedule behind these public occasions. According to Bocelli, an opera singer needs to take care of their voice in the same manner that an athlete takes care of their body before a crucial game. He abstains from drinking before important recordings and performances. He eats hardly anything. As much as he can, he rests music. Additionally, he has publicly discussed not having sex before significant dates because he feels that all of one's energy should be saved for music expression. He clarified in interviews that if you want to sing at the top level, you cannot overdo anything. He was able to maintain a consistent and potent sound after years of practice, which enabled him build a career that spanned decades. Many fans were shocked to discover how rigid his life was behind the romantic warmth of his songs, and he had already sold over 80 million records by the time these stories gained widespread recognition. His global influence continued to grow. During the FIFA World Cup in July 2010, he was the main act at the Celebrate Africa concert held at the Music, Coca-Cola Dome in Johannesburg. He sang songs like Time to Say Goodbye, which moved some of the audience to tears and became a global talking point, in front of almost 100,000 spectators. Despite fierce competition in the holiday market, the event, which was televised worldwide, helped his album My Christmas sell over 3 million copies in the US alone. He once again demonstrated that in environments typically dominated by pop singers and rock acts, classical and crossover music could not only endure but also take center stage. Years later, that same combination of risk-taking and bravery reappeared in a completely different context. He entered an empty Milan Music Cathedral on Easter Sunday for a solo performance titled Music for Hope during the stringent lockdowns in Italy in 2020. While millions of people watched the video from their homes, the city outside was quiet. The occasion brought in almost €4 million for hospitals battling the epidemic. For providing solace in the midst of a gloomy spring, he received appreciation from some. As the number of fatalities nationwide increased, some people expressed discomfort and thought the concert was inappropriate. Later on, Bocelli acknowledged that he felt upset and embarrassed by some of the responses, but he also spoke of his pride in helping hospitals. The incident demonstrated the difficulty of striking a balance between public health, art, and emotion in a nation that is grieving. As the world observed his public life, his private life was constantly changing. In 1990, after 3 years of courtship, he wed Enrique Cenzotti. Following severe pregnancy problems, their first son, Amos, was born via emergency C-section in 1995. Bocelli had to cancel a number of shows in order to be with her, recognizing that his work and family life would clash in the near future. Matteo, their second son, came in 1997. By the year 2000, he was doing around 200 shows annually. Long nights were spent by Enrique alone cooking silent dinners that occasionally remained unfinished as he was unable to get home. Slowly, the gap widened, becoming more emotional than physical. They parted ways in 2002. The divorce, music, appeared to be peaceful. Enrique later attributed the lack of big controversies to emotional distance rather than treachery. They continued to reside in nearby homes in Tuscany, and it is reported that Bocelli, music, contributed about €500,000 annually to enable their sons to remain near both parents. In the same year, a new chapter started. He met 18-year-old Veronica Berti at a party in 2002 when he was 44. She would go on to become his manager and partner. Music and their common Tuscan ancestry brought them together soon. That evening, he sang Occhi da Fata to her, and she later remembered that while he sang, the room seemed to shrink to just the two of them. That same evening, they moved in together, a decision that stoked journalistic speculation about a forbidden love due to their 25-year music age difference. Their relationship became more stable in spite of the rumors. In 2012, Veronica gave birth to their daughter Virginia, who quickly started singing on stage alongside her father. Andrea and Veronica tied the knot at the Italian sanctuary of Montenero on March 21, 2014. They have consistently maintained that age has never been the true question despite all the emphasis. More important to them than the numbers were common ideals and a passion for their homeland in music. Their middle child, Matteo, slowly made his way to the limelight. He was born in 1997 and was raised in the shadow of his father's celebrity. When he was younger, he started singing, but he chose to sing for his mother instead of Andrea since he was too nervous to do so. At the age of 6, he began studying music and learning the piano. However, he was afraid of being compared to his father at every note, therefore he was reluctant to dive straight into opera or pop. In 2018, that changed. He and Andrea recorded the duet Fall on Me when they were 18. Matteo made his worldwide debut with the song, which went viral on the internet. Andrea talked candidly about his aspirations for his son and cautioned him about the dangers of celebrity. Remembering that praise is fleeting, he advised him to maintain his humility. Matteo has since published his own albums and performed at important events, such as Kourtney Kardashian and Travis Barker's wedding, gradually establishing a career that is associated with his father but unmistakably his own. Fans all over the world have come to love their duets, which combine classical color and contemporary pop music. Beneath all of these subsequent victories is a tale that started prior to Andrea's birth. His mother Eddie was admitted to the hospital in 1958 due to appendicitis while she was pregnant. Doctors urged her to terminate the pregnancy after informing her that the unborn child might have a handicap. Eddie, a devoted Catholic, wouldn't. Due to hereditary glaucoma, Andrea lost all of his vision at the age of 12. He discussed his mother's decision in public in 2018 and utilized the narrative to advocate for pro-life causes in Italy. Many listeners were moved by the story and saw it as evidence of his mother's bravery, music. However, he was chastised by feminist music organizations and campaigners for using a highly personal anecdote to publicly address a complex topic. He disregarded women's rights and the challenging facts of abortion, they claimed. But for Bocelli, this tale is fundamental to who he is. He frequently brings it up in performances and interviews, and it influences how he discusses music, life, faith, and the stage. His body has also been put to the test in more obvious ways. A few days before a big concert in Tuscany in July 2010, he was thrown off a horse and broke his ribs. He needed to be brought to the hospital. He should rest, the doctors advised. Nevertheless, he made the decision to perform. He walked on stage while still in agony, covering the wound with a carefully wrapped chest. His perseverance and the hardship the act had on his already frail body were covered by reporters. The picture of music, a blind singer standing in agony and refusing to cancel, came to represent his unwavering dedication to both music and the people who paid to see him. Strange tales were part of life on his Tuscan farm. Bocelli's exceptionally keen sense of smell, which he developed after losing his sight, made him an inevitable guest during family wine tastings. He claimed that during one such taste in 2005, he detected an odd music smell in a bottle and thought something was amiss. He ended up in the hospital after drinking wine that he believed may have been tainted by envious rivals as the crisis worsened. Although the authorities eventually came to the conclusion that it was a hoax, the report soon gained traction and enhanced his mystique. The story illustrated the stress that comes with being famous in a cutthroat industry like Italian wine. Additionally, it suggested that although heightened senses can be helpful, they can also engender distrust and anxiety. In 2020, there were more storms. Apart from the concert at the Milan Cathedral, Bocelli made remarks in public regarding lockdowns in Italy that caused indignation. He talked about individual liberty and said that music regulations were too onerous, which many took as an invitation to disregard health precautions. He received harsh criticism for his words and posts on social media. He has been accused of promoting actions that endanger life. He fled temporarily to his home in the United States for safety after the outcry became so severe that he allegedly got death threats. Music. During a worldwide crisis, the story demonstrated once more how challenging it can be for public figures to discuss freedom, health, and politics, and how easily admiration may turn into rage. There were conflicts even within his own house. Amos, his oldest son, temporarily distanced himself from music. Feelings of competition and alienation were sparked by seeing Matteo take center stage as a budding music sensation. Rather than relying on microphones and stages, Amos switched his attention to business. This caused a silent conflict inside the family. The brothers continued to meet and converse, but something remained unsaid. It was during a private Christmas dinner in Tuscany in 2023 that the margin finally started to narrow. The two brothers opened up to the family about their separate lives, pressure, and expectations. It turned out to be a pivotal night. Music fans began to hear about their reconciliation, and Andrea went on to convey lessons about the value of family harmony, reminding people that even a renowned family needs to work through hurt, pride, and jealousy. His tale had expanded to the point where it required its own movie by 2025. Andrea Bocelli's documentary Because I Believe debuted at the Toronto International Film Festival in September of that same year. Intimate snippets from his Grammy experiences and early years in Tuscany were shown to audiences, along with never-before-seen film of the soccer accident at age 12, which has frequently been connected to the eventual loss of his sight. In its first weekend of release, the movie brought in roughly $5 million globally. It, at that time, became the highest-grossing music documentary of 2025. It featured historic footage from his childhood along with interviews with family, co-workers, and former friends. Because the film coincided with the 30th anniversary of his music career, it became a celebration and a reflection of the challenges he had surmounted. Its emotional honesty and ability to depict both the glory of his musical performances and the price of achieving that level won it plaudits from critics. Another eagerly anticipated professional milestone was reached the same year. Bocelli won the Grammy Award for Best Opera Solo Performance for Alabo Aria, which was recorded during his Napa Valley residency, on February 25 in Los Angeles. It had his typical blend of technique and emotion and had been taped live in front of 15,000 admirers. He defeated well-known musicians like Joyce Donato and Placido Domingo, which added to the victory's impact. He has received numerous nominations in the past, but this was his first solo Grammy music in that particular category. His age was 67. In his heartfelt victory speech, he thanked his family, his collaborators, and the public who had stood by him for 3 decades. His connection to international sport kept expanding. He shared the stage with pop sensation Robbie Williams at the FIFA World Cup 2026 final draw in Washington, D.C., on December 5, 2025, performing Music, Nessun Dorma. The draw revealed the groupings for the expanded 48-team tournament, drawing in about 2,000 spectators inside the arena and over 1 billion viewers worldwide. After attending World Cup ceremonies in 2006 and 2010, it was his 3rd time attending a FIFA function. His ability to interact with individuals from a wide range of cultures and countries led organizers to select him once more. FIFA made a $1 million grant to the Andrea Bocelli Foundation to promote children's music initiatives throughout the tournament. Social media exploded, videos of his performance went viral, and his appearance transformed music from a mere attraction into a moment of cultural unity. Just before that, a more personal project was delivered. He and Matteo and Virginia's family Christmas single, The Greatest Gift, was released in November 2025. The song featured a solo by Virginia at the age of 10, suggesting that the Bocelli musical line will continue after her brothers. It was recorded in a Tuscan vineyard. The video became one of the fastest-growing Christmas releases of that year, with 3 million views on YouTube in its first week. Music. The warmth of the lyrics and the harmony of the 3 voices were commended by critics of the song. The family was shown smiling and celebrating among the vines in the behind-the-scenes video, giving the project the feel of an invitation into their personal lives. The foundation's efforts to promote music education in underprivileged communities were funded by the proceeds of a limited vinyl edition that sold out in less than 48 hours. These strands all come together in his humanitarian and financial life. Andrea Bocelli's net worth, music, surpassed $100 million by 2025 at the age of 67, thanks to his premium wine brand, international tours, and more than 90 million recordings sold. However, he has frequently stated that his foundation is the aspect of his legacy that is most important to him. Through its initiatives in education and the arts, the Andrea Bocelli Foundation reached over 5,000 people in 2025 and assisted about 1,000 children living in extreme poverty. Music. The establishment of Braille music programs in Haiti that year was one of its most noteworthy initiatives, providing blind students with new resources for learning and performing. Some of these project locations, including a school where kids sang his songs in Braille, were personally visited by Bocelli. Music. In honor of this effort, he was given the United Nations Global Humanitarian Award in October 2025. The Foundation's annual report for that year revealed a 30% rise in funding over 2024. Music, evidence that its influence was still expanding.